Hi there, welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. My name's AJ Mahari. In this video, I'm going to talk about idealization in borderline personality. Who do you love? Or who is it that you did love? Or who is the person that you're trying to love who has BPD? And since they're not everyone with BPD is the same, of course, these are people who don't have any treatment, or just aren't getting anywhere in treatment, or aren't in the right treatment. And there's many people with BPD who've gone on to learn more about this and be much more aware. So the thing is, what do I mean when I say, who is it that you're really loving? Who is it that you fell in love with, or that you loved? Well, there is this sort of like secret or hidden aspect, or not a well talked about understanding of what idealization really is in borderline personality, especially in the beginning. So in significant other relationships, or the favorite person, or a friend, new type of relationships that people make with, who have BPD, connection, well, not really connections, but what looks like connections, right? Or what feels like for others connection, and what the person with BPD is hoping will be a connection, a friendship or relationship, is that they're idealizing you. And I think lots of people know this, right? So you're probably thinking, what are you talking about, AJ? What does this matter? Like, idealization, that's not the problem. The problem is devaluation, right? No, hang on a second. The first problem is idealization. Because here's the secret, if you will. Here's the key ingredient reality of idealization that I don't know if other people are talking about it there, but I haven't heard it talked about. When somebody with BPD is idealizing you as you meet them, especially in significant other relationships, though it happens in all types of relationships, this idealization to devaluation idea. Okay, so when you first meet them and you're falling in love and everything is going so quickly, and that's, a key red flag a lot of people miss, right? Everything is happening so quickly because that person with BPD really just wants to be your best friend right away, or get your be girlfriend, boyfriend right away. This is especially true of women with BPD, by the way, because it manifests a little bit differently in men sometimes, but it's not just gender specific one way or the other, talking percentage wise. So the thing is, you meet this person, and what they're doing in idealization, right, is they are mirroring you. They have codependency as well, so they're people pleasing. They're definitely trying to put a best foot forward, but isn't everybody when they meet somebody, especially a friend, or in a dating situation. But here's the thing, in idealization, so you're put on a pedestal, and they are mirroring you, and what happens is it feels so good, and it all happens so fast. So for those who aren't personality disordered, many who are empaths, many who have codependency, and codependency really isn't a dirty word. It doesn't mean it's your fault. But there's something in your childhood that leads you, that pulls you subconsciously to what's about to happen, or may unfold and take longer to happen in your life. Then it's going to be devastatingly painful. Or many people, if you're watching this channel or you're seeing this video, you already know it's devastatingly painful and something's really happened. You've been ghosted, or you've been discarded, or you're in a devaluation split, and you've been blocked, and you can't get an answer from the person, and you have no idea what happened. Or it's final and it's over, and you still don't know why, and it's really painful, and you want to, you hope they'll hoover, and they don't all hoover, and you hope you just feel such an addictive, compulsive impulsivity to contact them. Okay, so that's later. That's after all this other stuff happens. Well, what is all this other stuff? When they idealize you in the beginning of any relationship, especially significant other, dating, or friendship, they are not seeing you for who you are any more than they do when they devalue you and paint you black, as is so often said on the internet about this. Now, this it could be devastating to people to really understand. But I think it also helps to answer a question. I know clients ask me this all the time, and probably even with this video still will, and that's fine. I totally understand. It's not something you can just hear, take in and go, oh, well, that was it then. Okay, fine, thanks. No, it's devastatingly painful, and I don't even feel, I feel so much empathy for those of you who will see this message, and it will not be easy for you to listen to. Or the thing is, when they're idealizing you, they are relating to you, unknown to them, from a subconscious place, as that idealized object other parent representation of the good mother often that they never had, or the good parent that they didn't have. But mother is the first object, unless, something happens like terribly, like mother passes away in childbirth, and then there's a caretaker or a nanny, or the father becomes the primary caregiver. But that first phase, that caregiver, usually mother, it, as John Bradshaw put it, is first of all, it's our first object as an infant, that base that comes to us, that, gives us an emotional safety, and we try to interact with. And when things go well, people interact, and parents and mothers interact. But when they don't, then this is what causes so much of, what happens to 75% of people with BPD. And perception in the 25%. But I don't want to get too off topic here, because what I'm really wanting to say here is very difficult. Not so difficult to say. I think it's really something that I don't know if others have spoken about, but earth-shatteringly been left out. And that is, and I haven't even had this explanation way of just verbalizing or articulating it. It just came so clear to me recently, and I think I alluded to it in a video maybe a couple weeks or so ago, and then I was thinking about this more. So in idealization, when you're getting to know them, when you're falling in love with a person with BPD, and you believe they're falling in love with you, but they're actually idealizing you as that object other, good parent representation, people with BPD have codependency too. Now, not everybody's exactly the same. Some are more severely impacted, and it might not hold true for everybody, but generally speaking. So they're people pleasing. They want to be the person that you want to be with, because they're idealizing you, and they've already decided you're the person for them. And where does that come from? Well, that comes from a lack of a wounded inner child, but it comes from that core wound wherein they were emotionally arrested, their development was, and the self is evacuated, and they don't know who they are. They don't have this container of self inside from which to relate to other. So this idealization, what does it mean? What's the key here? What's the secret? What's the big deal? They don't really see you in idealization any more than they see you for who you are in devaluation. And what does that mean? It means that when you're having this incredible experience, though it's really quick, isn't it? Often it's happening so fast you can't even keep up, but geez, it feels so darn good, because you're being idealized, you're being put up on a pedestal. And so when I say you're not being seen for who you are, there could be fragments of them seeing you. But I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying, there's anything wrong with you, or you're not a fantastic person, or you're not very lovable. It's not the case. People with BPD just don't have this self to relate to other. And so they don't attach, and they're not loving you the way that you think that they are, because they're mirroring back to you what you're giving to them the best they can. And often from a place that is from their intellectual knowledge, more than even their actual feelings. So they are trying, because they're not narcissists, okay? So they're not trying to fool you. They are trying to connect. But subconsciously, what they don't know is that they're trying to connect with object other, good parent never had, parent still needed, because that split off in BPD, it's ego fragmentation, and in transactional analysis language, I'm just going to say, so the child part of self, of the ego, the one ego state, is split entirely from, which means the false self rises up and the self is evacuated. There's really nobody home there in the sense of an authentic, real, emotionally mature, developed person to love you and attach to you from. And people with BPD don't know this. And this is for people who are really have no treatment whatsoever, or don't even know they have BPD, or might know that, but they don't accept it, they deny it, etc. Because it's not the same for, but this is the reality until unless there's a lot of significant treatment. And so this idealization, that's what I want to key in on here. You're not being seen for who you are, but you're falling in love with them. It is fantastic. It happens quickly most often. And it's fantastic, right? It is so amazingly good, everything. And so why would you question it? You don't. And you fall in love with the person you think they are. And you think that the same is happening in return, but it's not. They're not loving you for you. They're not seeing you for you. They can't attach. They don't have a self from which to do that. So what I'm trying to tell you here, this can be devastating for people to hear, maybe with BPD, or maybe, who you love someone with BPD right now. But it answers the often asked question, and I expect many more clients to ask me this, much more about this anyways, or new clients or clients I'm working with now. It answers the question, when he or she devalued, and I must say most of my clients, I have a high, like 70, 80% are male, 20% female, who are, on the other side of people with BPD. When I look at clients with BPD, it's more heavily female than male, but not exclusively. So the point is, it doesn't really matter, but I think that more men are, it's harder for men. Let me just put it that way. And I have a big world of respect for men and so much empathy, but let me just say it is harder for men. It's not simple for women when they're on this other side of, a male partner with BPD, or if you have a same-sex partner, whether it's a man or a woman. The thing is, though, so this answers the question, this sort of secret, hidden, not explained, I don't know if it's explained out there, but not really talked about reality of idealization in those with BPD, especially in the honeymoon phases of getting together in, or like in friendship, favorite person stuff, whatever that actually still supposed to mean, or in these significant other relationships. It answers the question, when they devalue you, and after maybe idealizing, devaluing, and sort of not really idealizing so much anymore, and devalue, chaos and all kinds of things happen, and you're stressed and maybe arguing. Or if you're with a person with quiet BPD, it can look different, it can be different, but it can still be devastatingly like something's missing there when they get so withdrawn and quiet, and or then it's the silent treatment, whether they mean it to be or not. That's how it's experienced. So the fact that when they idealize you and you're falling in love with them, or really in big friendship with them, whichever the relationship type, they're mirroring you so much, and they don't understand what they're doing, but they're looking for that parent they never had subconsciously. And so they want to do everything in the world to please you. And whatever you like, they like. Like if you told them that your favorite, your hobby, what you do when you're not busy at work and stuff, is you just like to sort of grab houseflies and string hair through them, or something like a worm farm or something that most women would usually go like, oh, I would anyway. They'll say, oh, I love that too. Or you love, scuba diving, I don't know, upside down, ice fishing. And you might like some ice fishing or scuba diving. You might have a worm farm. I'm not judging any of that. I'm just saying things that usually most women are like, oh, yeah. They'll be, I love it. I love that too. You name a band, I love that too. So they don't really see you in the idealization. They're not really loving you like you love them. They're not really attaching to you like you're attaching to them. And people tend to start to really question, and the devastating pain of this, when the relationship is ruptured, ended, or you were ghosted or discarded, or it's on again, off again. And sometimes people, I have so many clients over the years, and even more recently, where people have been discarded or ghosted 9, 10, 12, 15, 20 times or more, 3, 5 times, multiple times. And then the cycle goes around again, and it doesn't always come around for people. So I want you to be aware of that. But here's the key thing. I don't want to make this video too long. Is this answers the question, how can I just all of a sudden mean nothing to them? How can they just all of a sudden be gone? Do they remember, like, was that real? Well, here's the thing. They didn't attach. They didn't love you. They were loving you like a young, emotionally arrested child, unbeknownst to them. Now, this has nothing to do with physical relations, okay? That's separate. Let's just, explain that some other time, or I do explain it to clients. But they're loving you from this young, childlike place of needing the parent that they didn't have, needing to get all these needs met, so everything's quick, and they have codependency, and these relationships come together so fast, everything seems so great, but they don't really have a real self there that's loving or attaching, loving you back or attaching back to you. They are more mirroring you, and then as that starts to fade after a while, that's where all of the trouble starts, and then like, things aren't so great all of a sudden, and you get devalued. And what's happening inside the person with BPD, I've talked about. I could talk much more about in video, but I just want to keep this one focused to just repeat this once more. So when you are getting to know the person with BPD and they are idealizing you, and you're in the honeymoon phase, whether that's friendship or love relationship, right? Significant other relationship, they are seeing you as good object other parent representation. So they can intermittently see, I would say, aspects of you, fragments of you, experience you sometimes, but not consistently and not in any whole sort of way, because there's no self there from which to do that, no stable sense of self. So, and they don't know this. It's subconscious. They're not narcissists. They're not playing a game. They're not wearing a mask. So when they're idealizing you, it's not really you that they're idealizing. And it's through you that they're idealizing who they're really relating to or trying to relate to. But they don't, so they're not loving you back the way you love them. They're not attaching to it the way you're attaching to them. And this is the answer to the question. So when that final devaluation comes, or however the cycles go throughout the relationship, how can it just be so over for them just like that? Why? How does it get all turned off? Where does all the love go? Where does all the attachment go? It wasn't there in the first place. And as Melanie Klein, and I've quoted this many times, says, in 75% of cases, but perception-based, and I will get into more of this, don't want to put it all in this video, people diagnosed with BPD, what happens in their early infancy is emotional abandonment, if not more, perceived or actual, equally as real, and also in the 75% it's actual, in the 25% is more perceived. The thing is, sensitive temperaments, yes, and that implies some things, but neuroplasticity and healing and recovery is still possible for those with BPD. So the thing is, anyway, Melanie Klein, the mother of object relations theory, has spoken many years ago, said, as I've quoted before, that this abandonment, and I would add in an attachment issues and wounds in the adverse childhood experience in 75% of people with BPD, the Melanie Klein quote is, psychologically kills the otherwise burgeoning authentic self, end quote. Unquote, end quote. Done quoting. So the point is, the self has evacuated, and they are just idealizing you as the parent they didn't have, because this is primal. They're looking for the rescue of the parent that somehow emotionally and or otherwise abandoned them. Maybe there was other adverse childhood experience, but that's who they're really trying to relate to from a subconscious place when they're idealizing you. And so for lots of people who get into relationships with those with BPD, you might not realize this yet, but with the thousands of clients I've worked with, it's not true of every single person, but a high percentage of people. You have a wounded inner child yourself. If you're a codependent and an empath, it's too much empathy. You need harm reduction. So there's something that wounded you in early childhood, not to the same extent of what happens to those with BPD. You can't see this coming. And the thing is, what's really happening subconsciously between the person with BPD and yourself is not the same, but you both, so the person with BPD has an evacuated, split off from inner child. And other people have a wounded inner child to varying degrees. And that's the subconscious pull that brings codependents, empaths, and people with BPD together. And it has nothing to do with the physical relations or the adult aspects of relationships. But this is a subconscious pull. And so I hope that this helps you to at least understand more. I hope you don't find it devastatingly painful to know that in idealization, people with BPD don't see you any more clearly for the who you are, person that you are, than they do in a devaluation split. And that can be devastating to hear. I well appreciate that. I have empathy. Please be kind and gentle to yourself. And if it pisses you off, I apologize. But it answers this other bigger question, which again isn't going to take anybody's pain away right away. I understand that. I really care about that. I'm out here to work with you if you resonate with me, if you want to understand this more, if you want to help yourself by helping your wounded inner child, if you really want to heal after a relationship with somebody with BPD or NPD, just know that they couldn't attach or love you the way that you thought they did, and that tragically the person that you love or did love or still love so much, even if you're an ex now, or you were ghosted or discarded, or you had to end the relationship, they never really existed. And that is a tragedy. That is not something that I say that with pain in my chest and empathy for people on both sides of BPD. So the thing not talked about, the thing not realized, the sort of elephant in the room where BPD is concerned a lot, in idealization, they are not really seeing you, loving you, or attaching to you the way that it well seems that they are. There could be intermittently pieces of them seeing, not pieces of them, but they could see you in part at times, but only very inconsistently and very intermittently. And that doesn't help because you might be getting more intermittent reinforcement in a sense. And yet, so my end message with this reality of what happens in idealization too is it feels so fabulous, right? It's so great until it's not anymore, and then it turns to the opposite, and it's horrible, and it's confusing, and it's chaotic, etc. And it's back and forth, it's cycle, and then it just, extinguishes itself. The person with BPD just gets to that point and whatever. The point is that as devastating as it is, I hope it helps you to at least, in your intellectual self, I don't expect it to go right into your emotional landscape or you to be able to process it emotionally necessarily right away. But these people didn't attach to you. They didn't love you the way you thought they did. And they were doing their best from a no-self place, And the other thing is that, so who you love or who you loved isn't really who they are. And they were just doing the best that they could. And they don't have a self from which to do any better with. So anyway, I hope that helps. I hope it doesn't hurt too much. I hope it makes sense. And I put it out there for the informational value that it informs people. It can be painful, I'm sure, to hear, but it's also the answer to the question. When the devaluation comes, the ghosting, the rupture of the relationship, however it ends, how can it just be all off like that? It's all off like that because it never really was what you thought it was or what they thought it was. And that's the tragedy of the core woundedness in borderline personality, which people are doing the best they can with, but unfortunately people with BPD are really wounded, hurt people who really wound and hurt others. And I would say most of that hurting and wounding others is very not intentional, but nobody deserves it. Take the best care of yourself you can now.